Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Elevate 2021 podcast series. My name, of course, is Gerda Muller, and I am your Elevate 2021 Private Practice Success Conference host. And we do have a very special guest here with us today, the lovely Dr. Amy Talbot. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you for having me, Gerda. It's lovely to chat with you as always.
Perfect. Yes, and we've already spent 13 minutes chatting right before this, catching up and doing all those things. But we are here to talk all things Elevate. But before we do that, can you please take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody that's listening? Tell us who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Yeah, great. So as Gerda said, I'm Dr. Amy Talbot. I'm a clinical psychologist and the director and founder of the Talbot Centre, which is a large multidisciplinary practice in Northwest Sydney. So I guess that summarizes a little bit of what I do, but clinically, my background is in working with eating disorders, child and family work, and more complex, I guess, mental health presentations. And these days, what I do is mostly run the practice and look after my toddler. So I'm not doing as much clinical work anymore, more supervision and consulting and business related work, which has been really nice, challenging in the context of COVID, but nice to have the flexibility as a new mum. And why do I do what I do? I feel like that's such a big question that we could talk about for the whole podcast. I think, ultimately, when I first started out as a clinician, I did what I did because the stories of people had an impact on me, and I wanted to have an impact in a positive way for them. Now, in terms of having the business, I think I started the business because there were things that I felt could be achieved in the healthcare space that I wasn't able to achieve in other places. And so I built a place where I could achieve that for myself. And the vision around that and around what healthcare should look like going into the future, I think, is what is driving the business today.
Yeah, and I must say, I feel pretty privileged that I've seen your growth from just Amy, solo practitioner, already exploding to the state-of-the-art practice that you have today. So maybe quickly, how big is the Talbot Centre right now?
Yeah, so we have about 30 staff at the moment. We have 6 consulting rooms, as well as a meeting room and a therapy kitchen. And then we have a separate space for staff as well, with a triage office and an executive office and like just a general staff area. So that's kind of where we're at. We're in the process of recruiting and expanding. We have psychology, dietetics, speech pathology, OT, and a pediatrician at the moment. In late 2022, we're going to be moving into a bigger space and expanding some of what we're offering to add new services, which I'm really excited about, and more than doubling our consulting room space as well.
That is so awesome. And as everybody heard, you guys have a multidisciplinary team. And of course, last year at Elevate, when we had the virtual version with all the stuff that life is about these days with COVID, you presented your topic last year was on how to establish and build a successful multidisciplinary practice, which you obviously did very, very well. That was an amazing topic. And hence, of course, I just had to have you back this year. So thank you for putting us on your calendar and on your schedule. I know how busy you are. So tell us, share with us, what is going to be your topic for this year's conference?
Yeah, so I think you kind of referenced already what I'm going to be talking about in terms of our journey together. So given our growth and our history, I'm going to be talking about from solo to state of the art, lessons from each stage of private practice development, which I'm very excited about. I'm hoping that people will be able to take the learnings that we've had in our journey and apply them in a useful way to their own journey and development as well.
Yes, and that was really the segue into my next question. Why would this be an important topic? If you think of yourself and, at various stages along the way, if you think back at level 1, level 2 private practice, why do you think listening to a topic like this will be of help?
Well, I think, even though I started my business support journey right from the beginning when I was at a solo space, and so I was probably lucky to avoid some of the challenges that I could have experienced otherwise. I still think there's a lot of things that retrospectively I would have done differently, if I had known that that's what was going to happen or what would be challenging about that experience. And so I think anyone who is in anyone who has a clear idea of what they want to achieve in their practice will benefit from some of the lessons that we've learned along the way in terms of our history, and hopefully they'll be able to apply that and avoid some of the things that have been challenging, or build the foundations for their practice as it grows in a more solid way as a result of what we learn.
Yeah, because, business, as you would know, is fraught with unexpected
Yes.
challenges and crises. And then, of course, there's those challenges that's going to happen irrespective of who you are, what type of business you are, because it's almost like a developmental crisis
Mm,
for business, right? It's like when you get to a certain stage or a
yes.
certain level, there's going to be these pressures and business crises, and you need to successfully navigate through that in order to scale and go to that next level. So I must say, I'm very excited to listen to your experience and what it is that you've learned, because hindsight is 2020, right?
Mm,
Being able to, I mean, I can just think if I was a newish practice owner, being able to listen and go, okay, that's something to avoid, that's a
mm,
pitfall, look out for that. It will really help other
mm,
practice owners to leapfrog their growth and their expansion even
definitely.
faster than they would if
Mm.
going through this without listening to a topic like this.
Yes, definitely. That's my aim. So I think hopefully people will achieve that from coming along.
Yes, and it's not as if you grew your practice with what I would refer to bread and butter work. It's like we're talking about it, very complex presentations
Mm,
that you guys work with, eating disorders, tics, complex OCD, all of that type of stuff. I love the feeding and eating stuff that you guys do. It's just an amazing business that you've built, and I think for other practice owners being able to hear that and see that these things are actually doable, because you had a very specific vision when we met. It was very clear vision. Yes, you clarified it even more
yes.
as you grew, but right from the start it was very clear what you wanted to achieve. And I think, having such a good clear vision of what you want to do also plays a big role.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right. It does get clarified over time, sharper. Um, and I think you realize that things you never thought were possible might actually be possible. And so you dream bigger than what you originally thought was possible to achieve.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how many years has it been from solo to where you are now? Was that
So we opened in 2015.
2016?
So at the start of 2015, I opened the practice by myself, just me. Although I knew I never wanted to be just me. I don't think I'm a lone fish. Like, I like to be with other people. And so I started a practice in a 3-room suite, knowing that I wasn't going to stay by myself.
Mm.
Um, and so then in 2017, we moved into the practice that we're in now. And then in 2022, we're going to move again.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is amazing. So it most truly is from solo to state
Mm,
of the art, and now even going to that next level, which I'm
yeah.
excited to see. All right, so tell me, next question. What failure have you personally experienced in your practice, in your business, that your topic will help our attendees avoid in future? So one specific thing that you can share
Mm.
with us now already.
Yeah, this is hard because I think there's a lot of things that and I try really hard not to classify them as failures actually.
Mm.
Um I think one of the big learnings, one of the things that's very challenging as a business owner, maybe this is a personal failure that although I don't like to classify it that way. Um one of the things that's been really hard is I think a lot of clinicians tend to be a bit more on the perfectionistic side, which is definitely where I fall.
Mhm.
And I feel like as a leader, you know, I saw myself and had an identity for myself as a very competent and capable clinician when I started the business, but not a strong business owner identity. And so there's almost this sense of, as you learn and you grow, like, as you said, like you become from a toddler to, you know, at a primary school age, and like you kind of grow alongside your business.
Yeah.
And there are lots of things that I did that I felt were failures,
Mm.
things that felt, and I felt like they were on display for everyone else to see because I was learning, and I didn't really know at times, or I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it was hard to feel like all these people in my team, they saw these things happening, and I didn't want them to see that because I wanted to be seen like as being, you know, having it all together. So, you know, maybe, and this is why I try not to label them as failures, because I'm like, no, these are opportunities for growth. You know, it's okay to model that you're growing and that everybody else is growing as well. And so, you know, maybe the failure that will be avoided is labeling yourself as a failure, and the capacity to recognize the opportunities for growth for you as well as for your practice, and how you sit in that in an as comfortable as possible way, given that it's quite uncomfortable to grow.
Mm. 100% love every little bit of that, and can most certainly relate, because I speak to a lot of practice owners, and a big part of them scaling is that fear of failure, right? Yes, there's fear of success as well, but also fear of failure, which is why I actually use the word failure to almost normalize that it's okay to fail, because we judge it as failures in our unconscious, right? But most certainly, I totally agree. It's not a failure. It is a lesson. It is an insight that you've gathered
Yes.
from this process. And, you mentioned about the clinician, and I know everything you guys do at the Talbot Center is about excellence, really the best practice strategies and interventions. And if you think about it, we studied like for 6 years to become this clinician. And then we only a new grad, and then we saw all this stuff to learn. And then we go into private practice and think, oh, I should know all these things, how to do it. It's like, no, there's so much more to learn. And it's so true in that we expect ourselves to be just as good as a business owner as we are clinically, but it's two different worlds, right? Yes, there's some transferable skills, but it is pretty different. And it is a learning process that we need to embrace. And I think that's probably a big secret of those people that make it in business long term, is that they do embrace the challenges and embrace the process and the growth. And yes, it might be hard in that moment, but when you look back, you feel really pretty proud of yourself for having gone through some of those things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome. All right. So next question, Amy, if you could go back in time, what would be that one thing you would do differently in your practice?
Again, there's probably more than one thing. Let's just pick one that might be relevant for today. But I think this is a lot of what will be covered in the presentation. You know, what the learnings are over time that I would have done differently. I think I would have put a management structure in place earlier. There are a lot of reasons why we didn't, or why it was challenging to do that. Or I would have put maybe I should say a more effective management structure in place earlier. That's something that we're like really teasing out now to facilitate the growth to the next stage, is what kind of management supports we need in place. And maybe related to that, I would see challenges from a big picture perspective and not band-aid them.
Yes. Love it. Oh, I can't wait to hear more details about those two when you do your talk, because that makes so much sense to me, right? And especially, I think we really neglect the management part. These days when I speak to people, and they tell me and they need to hire someone, I always ask, do you need heads or do you need hands? Right? What do you need right now? And sometimes as practice owners, we prioritize hands, like the hands on people, our clinicians doing the billable work. We forget about to get people in those management positions, which is really so important, right? To help us scale. Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. So tell us, what is the one thing you are currently researching or focusing on? So something new in your world that you're currently doing.
Yeah, well, as you know, Gerda, we're looking to integrate research more into our practice. So that's one thing that we're looking at the moment is how do we better integrate research into what we do day to day? And I mean, part of my vision has always been that we would take what was best from like the university space and the public health space and the private sector and integrate it all into one thing. So I'm excited to be in a position where we finally can integrate some of that research a bit more. And so we're doing a lot of, I guess, investigating now about what that looks like and how to do that effectively. And how to do that in a way that still facilitates growth and doesn't cost, like on the balance of things, we can afford to do it and invest in it, but also it eventually will bring in revenue so we can continue to do the research that we want to do.
Yes, I think that is such an amazing opportunity also for your team, not only for the practice, but also for your clinicians that's working to be able to have that diversity, to build their own research portfolio, right, and contribute to the profession in that way. And I love it when private practice, and it's not a lot, this does not happen a lot in private practice, but I love it when practice owners actually step up to the plate rather than leaving the research just for the universities, right? Because we've got so much to offer.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's that, disconnection between the real world setting and a university setting, and the majority of the research is done by academics who don't engage in clinical practice. So the translatability into what we do day to day just isn't quite there.
Yeah, totally. And maybe 2022, you will talk to us about research related stuff.
I would love to.
Excellent. All right. So tell me, if you think back, this will be your second year as a speaker at Elevate. What did you love most about being part of last year's Elevate experience?
Yeah, I think what was really interesting about the conference is that even though it was online, I think the energy was really high. So the people who participated, they were very active participants, very engaged participants, and it meant that it didn't feel like a very remote, disconnected conference. And I think one of the things that I have learned over time as a business owner is that you need to surround yourself with other people who are the same as you, people who will think in similar ways, who are pushing for innovation, who want to move outside of the status quo, who want to grow and develop themselves. That idea of, who you surround yourself with is who you become. And so I think the quality of the people who attended and participated, the speakers as well as the attendees, was really high, and the energy that was that came across through that was really great, despite the fact that it was an online conference.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you're saying is that our participants were very elevated in their participation.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
Goal achieve. And when you said that, that also sense of surrounding yourself with the right people makes me think of a business saying. I can't now remember who said it, and hopefully I'm paraphrasing here. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go with others. But if you want to achieve both things, you want to go fast, but also far, rather than fast and then stopping halfway, you need to go with kindred spirits, right?
I love that. That's awesome.
Yes, because it's your kindred spirits, not just any person, your kindred spirits that shares that vision, that pushes you, that lifts you up when you are down and cheerlead you, and vice versa. And that's most certainly the goal with the Elevate community as well. All right, so last question then. If somebody is watching or is listening and they're on the fence, they haven't made a decision whether that's to come virtually or in person, what input would you give them to help them make a decision as to whether to join us or not?
I think I would say, have a think about what it is that you want to achieve for yourself, and for your business in the next 12 months. And if you want it to be, if you want to grow, if you want to grow as a person, if you want your business to grow, especially in the current context where there's a lot of additional challenges for business owners, and if you're exhausted and you don't know how you're going to find the energy that you need to grow, then come along, because what will likely be experienced is that you'll be recharged by other people who are wanting to grow alongside you, and you'll experience that energy and have the resources that you need in order to achieve that growth for yourself and your business in the next 12 months.
So true. So true. I think even if you come and you don't implement anything you learn, which would be crazy, the lift in spirit that you get, especially if you're there in person, but even online, because like you said, we work really hard to create that sense of community online as well. That can see you through the next couple of months, just to have that internal inspiration and motivation and reconnection to, why it is that we're here and why it is that we do what we do, which is so important when you're at that brink of burnout, which when I speak to practice owners, a lot of them are. Because they've had to be so strong, not just for themselves and for their business, but for their team and for their clients that they're still seeing.
And for their family, and for and for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Well, I cannot wait to listen to your presentation. Thank you so much as well for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you at Elevate.
Thanks, Gerda. Thanks for having me. It feels just like old times.
Yes, yes. As if we did this yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
Lovely. Thanks, Amy. I'll speak to you soon.